Oh, hey, Donna, give us just a moment. We're just getting started here. Welcome everyone who is joining us here for week 11 of Zoom chats. We're talking with Don Kilpatrick today, illustrator, CCS professor. We'll be talking with him, doing a little print demo as well. So get ready for that. It's going to be real fun. If you're joining us right now from Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, know that these are always presented live also on Zoom, so you can join the discussion live, ask questions, chat with us. But if you're just joining us on those social media chat channels, feel free to comment below. I'll make sure it gets added to the discussion as well. Cool. So first off, I do want to say a very happy birthday to Don. It's his birthday today. Make sure to wish him a happy birthday in the comments. He's taken some time out of his special day to hang out with us. We really appreciate him and everything. I won't go and sing him a full happy birthday or anything like that, but just know we're thinking about him. Next, I want to say that we present these talks free of charge. And if you really support and love these, consider making a donation to one of these great organizations, kind of in our honor, to show support for this. First off, we've got the Detroit Justice Center, which is a nonprofit law firm which is working alongside communities to create economic opportunities, transform the justice system, and promote equitable and just cities. They're also working with a bail project, which is helping people dealing with the predatory bail practice. It's a really great organization, seeing a lot of support right now and could always use more. There's also the Michigan Liberation Group, which is a statewide network of people and organizations who are working to end the criminalization of Black families and communities of color. Sorry, we got a little bit of a troll right here in the chat. Oops. So ignore him for the moment. I'll get to him in a second. We also got the Michigan Solidarity Bail Fund, which is a bail fund working to bail out those most in need of those who put themselves at risk of fighting for our collective freedom. Sorry about this. I'm just going to kick this guy out. Give me 1 second. Sorry about this, everyone. Bye, jerk. Okay, cool. Sorry about that. Back to sharing. Cool. Next is the Ruth Ellis Center. It is Pride Month. We really want to call out and support the Ruth Ellis Center, which is a local organization that is supporting LGBTQIA+ youth and young adults with a emphasis on young people of color who are experiencing homelessness and involved in the child welfare system and or experiencing barriers to health and their well-being. It's a great organization. We really love them. Consider as part of your Pride Month support, tossing a little bit over to the Ruth Ellis Center. And next, I want to talk about these two great poster exhibitions. And we have Donna Jackson on the call here right now. Donna, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing over here at DMJ Studios and who you are and everything?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Donna Jackson, like Dylan said, and I run a studio in Detroit, DMJ Studio, and the work we do is develop experiences and exhibits on different issues that are happening currently or just issues that we feel need to be addressed. And right now we're actually running 2 different poster exhibitions or poster calls for exhibitions. One is posters on politics and the other is the world after. Posters on Politics is actually in its second run. It started in 2016, 2017. And it was supposed to be a local call for Michiganders and Michigan designers to just share their political views in a poster, in posters, but it became international. We have posters from all around the world and designers from all around the world participating in this. And so we decided to do it again in 2020. And it's been a really great experience seeing all of the different designs from countries like Iran, Iraq, Turkey, from the UK, all over the place, and being able to see what comes out of that. And we're doing it this year with a focus really on racial and racism and injustice. We actually closed the call last month, but with what's happened in our world in the last couple of weeks, we reopened it to focus on posters about racism and injustice. So we hope that everyone participates. The call is still open. And the world after is really focusing on looking at the world after, now that we are in this world of COVID-19, we have this potential of changing our world. And what can that look like and be like, whether education, health, just re-evaluating and reimagining our world and using the poster canvas as a way of doing that. So both are great opportunities just to express, especially with everything that's going on, and actually get some discussion going and maybe some action too.
Great. They're always really cool. You put together some really great events and exhibitions. We love like the Door Project and everything like
Yes.
that. If you don't know Donna, like make sure to head over to DMJ Studio, take a look at some of the cool work that you're doing. It's great to see you here.
Yes, definitely.
We'll chat with you a little bit later.
Okay.
Well, cool. Make sure to get over and add your submission. August 1st is the deadline. Is that correct?
Correct. For both of these calls, August 1st is the deadline. So you still got a little over a month to express yourself and do America proud. There's a lot of artists from all over the world. We need that American voice in these two exhibitions, for sure.
Great. Well, thanks a ton, Donna. We'll keep promoting this as much as we can. So thanks a ton for joining us.
No worries.
So great. Don, are you ready? Are you good to go?
I am. Just one moment here and I'll pull up my presentation for everyone. So
great.
Thank you so much, everyone, for thank you AIGA Detroit for having me do this. I'm really honored to be presenting today and share with you, just a bit about myself and the projects that I'm involved with, and as well as one of the things I love to do within this new sort of COVID atmosphere that we find ourselves in is I love to share what I do in my studio, and I'll be sharing with you a printmaking demonstration on my latest print or my latest lino cut rather, that I just finished last night. And so I'll share my screen now with my presentation here. All right, I'm hoping everyone can see this okay. So, hi, I'm Don Kilpatrick. I'm an artist, illustrator, designer, and educator. I was brought to Detroit. I came to Detroit to teach at the College for Creative Studies back in 2007. And I immediately fell in love with Detroit, immediately fell in love with the college. I'm the department chair of illustration. I also just recently was asked to assume the responsibilities of a co-leader of undergraduate studies recently, and I'm honored to have been asked. And I really love teaching. I love interacting with my students. But before I launch into my presentation, I wanted to share with everybody just a couple of things about hope that I heard from a guest speaker, in fact, that was a guest artist rather, that was at CCS a few years ago, Kenneth Helfand, who is I think by trade is a landscape architect, but wrote a book called Defiant Gardens. And in that book, he researched individuals that were gardening in times of strife, war, civil unrest, and challenging times. And to quote from his book, he said, hope is the act by which the temptation to despair is actively overcome. Hope is preparation for the future, whose positive energy nourishes our actions. And hope just means another world might be possible, not promised, not guaranteed. Hope calls for action. Action is impossible without hope. To hope is to give yourself the future, and that commitment to the future makes the present inhabitable. So I think that really stuck with me when he presented, and it is my hope today that we can all take and have a good time together here. So to kind of go through, I kind of like to start things where I'm at now. I've given presentations in the past where I kind of gave my story of where I'm from, and I'll talk about that as I give my presentation. But I like to share with you where I'm at now, what I'm doing now in during this pandemic, how I've been able to keep myself somewhat sane and together in this challenging time, and also reach out to other people. So, I wanted to share with everybody here. I'm pretty excited about this. I was recently asked by Speedball Art. I've been using their rollers, their inks, and all this stuff for years, and I was asked to be part of their professional artist network, and I'm really excited about that because I love to collaborate with others. I'm an illustrator by trade, but I'd like to, as an illustrator, it's kind of, you're by yourself a lot. It's a little bit of an isolating experience, and I'm very much community minded and a very social person. And so I like the idea of reaching out to others. I love collaborating with designers. And I hope you see that with some of the stuff I share with you. But I've really enjoyed this partnership with them because it's providing me a means to where I can check out what new things that they're doing, as well as find ways in which I can leverage that partnership with them to benefit my students, to benefit those in my community, and as well as further my own practice of making illustration and art. And this is a shot where I'm actually broadcasting from today. I made it's pretty much an improvised space. I was, as I was let in here, I was talking to Dylan, just mentioning to him where when we had to make this move at CCS from teaching in person, where we had the stay-at-home order, we had to kind of Apollo 13 this thing, and I had to bring a lot of different tools and stuff home that I typically would have either at my studio building or at CCS, which can kind of be a little bit crazy. But I've made an improvised clothesline here to hang the prints. I've actually done more woodcuts and lino cuts in the time of the stay-at-home order and during the time of the pandemic than I've ever been able to consistently do in my career. And because of that, one of the things that I like about I've dove in deeper into the various media that I work in, and I've discovered these inks here that clean up with water, which is, for someone who's doing a lot of printmaking like I do, that's a really good thing, because when you're at home, you have all those potentially harmful chemicals for cleanup, solvents and whatnot. And it also, the home studio feels a lot like this. This is a crop of Francis Bacon, the painter. This is his New York studio. My quote unquote studio, or the corner of my basement where I'm working now, sometimes feels like it's caving in on me, much like Francis Bacon's studio. I hope it's not this bad, but there are days where I do feel like it gets a little bit claustrophobic. And I'm sure some of you or many of you might feel similarly when you're doing and working in a lot of different media. So this is my setup here. This is where I've shot demonstration videos for students. I've done live streaming from this. This is my kind of improvised setup. It's like a little space capsule here. I'll be using this setup today when I'm sharing with you my latest print. The block that's on that table there is a project I had the honor of working on over the pandemic with Midwest Common for Traverse City Whiskey. And this was a woodcut that will be used in various ways with their brand. and did this on a piece of walnut that a friend of mine who has a farm gave me a bunch of to do woodcuts. So trying to utilize what I can there. And this is one of the woodcuts. This is another one of those pieces that he gave me where it was just kind of this odd-sized piece and just exploring personal themes. Right now, I'm currently represented by M Contemporary Art Gallery in Ferndale. Had a recent solo show there about a year and a half ago or so. And I continually work to produce work in conjunction with my gallery when I'm not doing illustration or design work for clients. So a little bit about me. I'm originally from Salt Lake City. Spent time growing up back and forth between California and Utah, and I moved out to Detroit in 2007. And I've been working as an illustrator professionally for about 24, 25 years now. This is another, again, another woodcut that I've done during the time of the stay-at-home order, during the time of the pandemic. These are really current. This is a wood engraving. Again, a lot of personal work here, but I'm always creating. I kind of try to follow the advice of one of my mentors, one of my thesis advisors from graduate school, where he has this attitude of, I'm going to keep working and I'll just wait for someone to interrupt me. And that's I've carried that throughout my career. If I'm not busy with a project with a client, or I'm not busy doing teaching at CCS, or I'm doing something administratively at CCS, I'm constantly working on my own imagery, trying to push where I'm going, my thinking, the mediums in which I work, all of that. But these are all. This is another engraving. And this is a recent woodcut here. This is a 3-color woodcut. I'll share with you later on the actual blocks I used for this. And the thing I love about woodcut is I intentionally try to have some imperfections there. Where the flags in the background aren't quite lining up, or precisely, is kind of a nice happy little accident, right? Sorry for the quality of the slide, but this is another these are my most recent works, so I haven't had time to really get in and archive them properly, but this is another personal piece here that is a continuation of the series I'm working on right now. And this is a close-up shot of a work in progress of the Traverse City whiskey woodcut that I was working on. And for some individuals, I think this is a very stressful time. It's very. I think we're all feeling the stress in one way or another. And for me, my way of coping has been to dive into my work and really find that joy in creating work. I know that isn't necessarily how everybody copes, but that's how I deal with it. And I've been very productive as a result of that. Another 2-color. Print and again, having these, discovering new tools, new inks, new things like that, through this partnership with Speedball has really been a game changer for me. In terms of my productivity, I'm able to use this stuff and it's super easy, and it doesn't really impose on my space or time. These 2 pieces here are based upon me. This is basically like my own 2 hands. I've always wanted tattoos, but I don't think I've got the courage to get hand tattoos, maybe not yet. And this is maybe what I would have. But another piece here that's a variation of a piece that I had at M Contemporary Art. And yet further on in this process. And then the most current thing that I'm working on right now, this is a piece that I'm doing. It's I'm just kind of sharing with you, my early thumbnail stage. I always start off with thumbnails, and it's a process. I'm a big believer in using a sketchbook. Both I paint in my sketchbook. I do a lot of thumbnails in my sketchbook. It's really kind of a repository for a lot of my ideas and my thinking process. This is where 80% of the work goes into what I do. And in the ideation phase, I'm drawing upon personal influences, different things, and I was really drawing upon influences of Ukrainian headdresses. And as I was developing this piece, I had very much in mind my trans brothers and sisters, and really trying to celebrate them. And this piece is a dedication to those people. When I finish the print, I intend on doing a small edition and donating the money generated from that to actually the Ruth Ellis Center, who, as it was mentioned earlier today, AIJ supports them as well. This is just a close up of the sketch. I go from rough sketch to a more refined sketch in this case on tracing paper, tissue paper, some refer to it as. And then from there, I usually take this tracing and I transfer that to the wood block or to the linoleum. And also, I see kind of a divergence in the path here. One thing I love about printmaking is I look at it as a dual original, and that's why I'm so drawn to it. Is the wood block itself, the lino cut, the artifact is an original, as well as the print produced from that. And I really, for example, at the Metropolitan Museum in New York, or even at the DIA, there's examples of wood blocks by individuals such as Albrecht Dürer, and just those I'm drawn to as much as I am the work produced from those blocks. And I also look at my work in this way too, where if I create this as a transfer sketch, I also scan this, and then I go a completely different, at that crossroads, so to speak, I go a completely different direction and explore this in the with digital media such as Photoshop, or I intend on moving this to ZBrush, something like that. So, and this is where it's at now. You'll see the actual finished lino cut in a moment. Another thing that I wanted to share with you is something that I'm doing lately, and I want to definitely encourage you to attend if you have the time. In fact, we're doing this tonight. Visual Arts Passage, which is founded by a dear friend of mine and mentor of mine, John English, and Tim Trabon. It's they founded the Visual Arts Passage and the Illustration Academy. They're through the pandemic, they've been doing a Thursday night figure drawing session via live stream via Zoom. I've been participating as a panelist in this, and I intend on doing that tonight. It's one of those things I look forward to. It's one of those things that's kept me sane throughout all the craziness that we've all been dealing with. And I encourage you to attend. It's everybody's there, everybody from professional working illustrators to people who just love to draw, to the gamut. And this is some of the work I've produced through that. These are all 20-minute poses where Tim has a photography setup, one of his friends who's self-isolating with him. They've been torturing him by having him be the model. This was from the Seinfeld evening. There's usually a theme, and each panelist has 20 minutes to complete the piece, and those in the meeting follow along and draw along, and everybody places an illustration isolation hashtag at the end, and we go through all the pieces created at the end, much like you would with an in-person figure drawing or painting session. And these are just some of the pieces. This was from the this was from the Wes Anderson evening that we had. And we also, from time to time, some of the panelists will bring in historical photography reference. This was from Frank Schoonover, the Golden Age illustrator who, used some of his photo reference for, a quick 20-minute demonstration. And also, I've been doing a lot of chats via Instagram Live. This is I do a Sunday printmaking session with a printmaker friend of mine from St. Petersburg, Russia, Natasha Serdyukova, and we both either print, we talk, we share. One Sunday, for example, Natasha shared, she's a third-generation artist. Her grandfather was an artist, and he was a soldier in the Red Army during World War II on their way to Berlin, and kept a sketchbook, and she shared that a couple of weeks ago. And I have those archived in my Instagram feed if you're interested. I also have been able to connect with my good friends from Tokyo. I spent last summer a couple of weeks in Tokyo studying at the shoemaker class with master shoemaker and artist Noriyuki Misawa and his wife Yuki-kan. And we are staying in touch. We've worked on a couple of collaborative projects. We have some more in the works. And so I want to share with you a couple of notable projects, things. I obviously have my website, and you can see a lot more in depth with some of the things I've done in the past, but I want to pull out a few things that I'm super proud of. It's difficult for me, and I love to talk, and I have a hard time editing down some of the things I love to do, because I just love the act of creating art. I think is something I love to do. And speaking of Noriyuki Misawa, this was a project that came out of my newly discovered passion for shoemaking. At CCS, about 4 or 5 years ago, we established a fashion accessories program, and Aki Chocolate, who is an amazing designer, great person, just amazing artist. He has helped establish that program and got me interested in shoemaking. And in fact, if I back it up further than that, I'm a big fan of Daniel Day-Lewis, and I remember reading about how Daniel Day-Lewis said, "Screw you, Hollywood," and decided to go make shoes and study with an Italian shoemaker. I believe sometime in the 90s. And I always thought, that's so cool. I'd love to do that. And that kind of, stashed that way in the back of my brain. And then when this program was started up, Aki had approached me and said, "Hey, you should take this continuing education class on boot making. You should sign up for it." And I was like, I'm going to do that. And, that led to me meeting a lot of their guest artists that were coming in. And one of the guest artists there, through his program at CCS, said, "Hey, you're going to be in New York in November." This is a couple of years ago, and said, "Hey, you should check out Noriyuki Misawa's work. He's going to be in a gallery in Soho." And that was literally down the street from where I was staying, next to FIT, and met Noriyuki. And then that spawned us, having conversation, and led to us collaborating about a year and a half ago to 2 years ago on a pair of shoes where this is the class where I studied with them in Tokyo. And these are the shoes. The shoes were, made, the bespoke shoes that Noriyuki made and crafted, and I carved into the soles of these shoes, and he made these to measure to my feet. So I took these shoes, I inked them up, and then I printed them on paper with the assistance of my studio mate. So to add pressure, using my body as the pressure, the press, to create prints based upon these shoes. While I was in Tokyo, I looked at, I decided to make the trip to go study with Noriyuki after we collaborated and after my show opening, which I was lucky enough to have him attend. We scheduled things in a way where he was a guest artist at CCS, and we were able to get him to the opening of the gallery show at M Contemporary Art. So while we were there, I said, "Hey, how long would I need to take if I wanted to study with you in Japan?" I'd made the decision, I'd had a successful show, and I'd made the decision to make an investment in my own self-funded residency, is what I like to call it, because I've applied for artist residencies, and I haven't always been lucky enough to land one. But I thought, instead of waiting to land another one, I figured I'm going to fund my own. And how it relates to these paintings, these are all paintings based upon when I wasn't busy studying shoemaking. I was actively exploring all over Tokyo as much as I could. I would usually spend from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the shoemaker class, and then I would spend other time just going around and just trying to dive into the Japanese culture, Tokyo, and anything I could. This building stood out to me because as I would walk my way to school each morning, this was like the oldest building I saw in the district which I was in Arakawaku. And I always knew where I was going if I saw this building. And I'm really proud. This painting here, these are all color studies that I did after the fact, after I got home from Tokyo. And I'm really proud to say that this painting here, as well as this illustration here, as well as the additional one I'll show you in a moment, were both selected for the American Illustration Annual that's coming up and will be released in November. As you can see here, I do these as studies, and I'm a big believer. I teach a beginning painting class, and I'm a big believer in applied color. And I'm always constantly comparing the lightness and darkness of a color, comparing the colors up against each other, really, swatches, I got in the habit of doing that, working in a design firm as a junior art director, those swatch books, the Pantone books, and just applying that with paint. This painting as well got in. This is, and this was all from photo reference that I shot because, my limited time that I had there, I had 2.5 weeks there, and I knew that I would have limited time. So I took as many photos as I could with the understanding I'd bring them back to the studio and create full paintings. And these are some of that from my trip there. And these are all painted with, I work in everything from Procreate to Photoshop to gouache to oil. I look at it like I'm pushing pixels or I'm pushing pigment. I try to go back and forth, and I try not to get too hung up on a specific medium. And then, another project that I'm really proud of that happened a couple of years ago is I was approached, and I was really approached because of what I was posting on Instagram. An art director had approached me because I was posting a lot of just personal paintings from my sketchbook, portraits, different things, and they'd approached me about doing that. He had pitched this idea to at Olympia Entertainment of having this north-facing wall on the new arena have spirit murals that would from time to time change out of sports and music legends of Detroit. And I was super honored to be asked. These, they're very small in this photograph, but they stand 3 stories tall. So it was a challenge. I had to really make sure that when I was painting these, that I had to, it went through a lot of different hurdles. I had to make sure a representative from each person's estate or the individual themselves was approving of the portrait, as well as making sure that everything was really precise in a measurement way so that it would scale up at that scale and be able to be reproduced and hung onto the arena. And so it was Isaiah Thomas, Eminem, Aretha Franklin, Gordie Howe, and Joe Louis. And it was a great project. I'm really proud of seeing these when I drive by. It just kind of blows my mind to have my work on a scale and to be part of the landscape in Detroit, a city that I love so much. And I just didn't think that something like that would happen. And I again, this goes back to, I really believe in really exploring your personal voice and exploring your personal work. Keep working and let someone interrupt you. I also take a lot of pride and pleasure in working with Joe Benghauser as one half of the Detroit Wood Type Company. We have a studio building just south of McNichols that we purchased about 4 years ago, or we've been gradually working on. And we do a lot of letterpress projects, but we do a lot of, we fuse a lot of our interests in graphic design and illustration together for a variety of different projects and clients. We produce our own stationery. We're really trying to produce things that we ourselves would like to have. And at that time, we both love sports, don't get me wrong, but we were trying to find, what would we like that we would use that really speaks to Detroit, really speaks to what we're interested in. And we've gradually acquired a lot of this printmaking equipment, various proof presses, and just have learned things along the way. We're making wood type, and that was a learning process that we're still in the middle of. But this is some examples of us taking and resurrecting historic typefaces and recreating them type high in wood with this is a laminate method using a laser cutter, and then making sure we're measuring to type height so it'll make contact with the rollers on a press. And some of the cards and stationery that we've produced, and also this has led to us working on collaborative projects for the Trumbull and Porter Hotel. tapped to do this mural here. And we, this is a really collaborative of process. This image here, this was something I produced, but this was really based off of inspiration that I drew upon from a lino cut that Joe had done a couple of years prior to this, and us, drawing inspiration from a poem for this. And then, also it's been great too, because they'd asked us to have to hang or for posters for the different rooms in the hotel, as well as have the posters available in their sundry store. The poster to the right there is the Detroit Paris of the Midwest poster is one of ours, and another thing that I'm proud of. This is going back a ways, 18 years ago to be precise, when I was living in Salt Lake, was I had the honor of working on the Olympic medal design for the 19th Winter Olympic Games that were held in Salt Lake City in 2002. And that was an open competition. I was working at Axiom Design Communications, which has now become Struck. But at that time, they were called Axiom Design. We submitted ideas in an open call. And when we got word that we were selected, we were all just blown away. We just didn't think that would happen. And it was a really great collaborative project for me, working with the designers at Axiom, and working together on a team of 4 people to continually refine this and work with the Salt Lake Olympic Committee on this, as well as just having my work. I still it's one of those things where I feel like what I do as an illustrator many times is I hate to put it, but it's like a throwaway kind of thing. Whereas this is something that an athlete will cherish and hold on to. And one of the things that was unique at that time about this medal design is we really, on the back of each medal, we called out the various disciplines within the Olympic Games. And so many of the athletes would flip the medal around. And that was kind of a first for the time. It's been done subsequently, but that was something we introduced in that game. And I really drew inspiration for the front of the medal based off of, really thinking about the concept that they were really the theme of the games that year. And, my mind kept going back to Michelangelo's Captive series, the sculptures he did towards the end of his life, where the figures are seemingly breaking out of the stone. And I thought of that as the athlete, and that's where I drew inspiration for that. And, using the frame of the athlete to silhouette the specific sport or discipline in the Olympic Games. And this was from I even got a chance to art direct the photo shoot for that went out as the publicity still. I basically bought a huge block of ice at a corner market, took it to the photo studio with a photographer, had my chisels that I had from art school, from sculpture class, and chiseled away at this to make it feel like it was, out of an icy riverbed. And, this was really, time was of the essence, because the metal kept melting through the ice in our photo shoot. So this was something we had to work very quickly on. And, as we were awarded that, I was given the opportunity to, they'd offered up to us the opportunity to design the Olympic torch. And, I had a chance to work on this and contribute to this project as well, and had the opportunity of hand delivering the prototype to Washington, D.C. for the unveiling of the torch on Capitol Hill. So that was a great experience. So, having that experience that early in my career was something that I'm really proud of, nearly 20 years later. And thank you so much. I covered a lot there. There's much more that I could cover. I'll give you, this is my contact information if anyone there wants to do a screen grab of that or jot that down. I'd love to continue the conversation. I know, 20-minute or an hour presentation is not nearly enough for me to give you a sense of who I am. But I'd encourage you. I'm very active on Instagram. I do a lot of live streams, and I would love to continue the conversation. And, if you have more questions, I'm happy to answer them now too. But what I'd really like to do, I can answer questions now, or I can jump to the hand printmaking part of my demonstration or my presentation here. So I don't know, Dylan.
Yeah, I think just jump into printmaking and people
Okay.
can start asking questions. People start typing and stuff like that. And
Okay, cool. Yeah, if you
by
can,
the time you're done, we'll have some questions.
okay, cool. So if you can help me with that, I just, I won't be able to look at the screen as much, and it's always a challenge for me to check out the chat, So I'll take and set this up and move my camera here, and we'll go to the next thing. So
awesome. Yeah, we got some comments coming through here that everyone's loving the sketchbook images, and we're excited about the live streams. Declan was saying, I was just hoping to get some life drawing practice. I'll definitely be attending tonight. So
yeah,
they've been really fun.
awesome.
It's been fun to watch them.
Yeah, no, what they're doing is an amazing thing. I really just love being part of that. It's really just it'd be great to be in person. I think we're all feeling that. I think we're all definitely, the fatigue is set in long ago, but it really is. It's great in some ways too, because there's people tuning in from all over the world, and individuals I normally wouldn't get to see only maybe once every few years, in person. So this is the lino cut I was describing earlier. I'll kind of hold it up to the camera here so that you guys can kind of see. I get asked oftentimes, whether, when you're starting out, whether someone should start off with linoleum or carving in wood. I think it's really a personal preference thing, but I would also say that, it depends on how far you want to go with it. I would recommend learning both. They both have very different properties, and very, react very differently, and there's different considerations. It just depends on how far you want to go down the rabbit's hole. So, but it's very therapeutic for me. Like I was talking about earlier, I'll just show you this really quickly here. This is my transfer sketch, so I'm basically transferring this in reverse. So this is actually the right facing or the right reading side, I guess is what we technically say. And I flip this side, and this is what I transfer down with transfer paper. And if you tune into my Instagram feed, or even my Facebook, I do some Facebook Live as well, you'll see that. And I'm sorry, my camera is a little bit crooked here. I'll try to straighten out that camera there. It's probably driving me more crazy than it is anybody else. But so this is it. This is what I'm going to print. I normally would have a second block ready to do a 2-color print, but just due to time, and that this is really just current, I just didn't get around to getting the second block done. But typically, if it's a 2-block, and I'll explain this, and then I'll get on to the good stuff here. But this is a previous block here, where this is the key block. It might be a little bit difficult to see, and then this is the second color. I just didn't have time to do something like that for this print right here. But like I said before, I'll be making this available shortly, one way or the other. I'll be letting everyone know. So just stay in contact with me, and I'll let you know. And I'm using these speedball inks. This is really easy for cleanup. Really great. I don't have all that harmful fumes and all that kind of stuff. And I've got my I'll just, when I roll up and I get ready to print, I will take and I want to make sure that when I'm rolling up my ink, I want to have that consistent hissing sound. And I want to go this direction as well too, to make sure I have even coverage on the rubber roller. And if you notice there, I don't pull from that large pile of ink very much. I only do a little bit. This is about enough. I might need to pull from it again as I start inking up the block, because I'm inking up the lino block for the first time. Now, one thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe away a little bit here. Got a little bit too much on there. And I forget, with some of the finer detailed areas, I'll need to be a little bit more mindful of that. But areas like up through here, I don't have to necessarily be that careful. It's more about coverage. So I'll just keep kind of inking around here to make sure I've got even, consistent coverage there. And I'll use a smaller roller to get the finer detailed areas. On this in particular, this lino cut is going to challenge me more than others because I'm going with a little bit more finer detail than I have with a lot of other cuts that I've done recently.
And Don, I've got a question about your rolling here. Any reason why you're using like the thinner roller versus like a much larger one for these like bigger block pieces? I know whenever I use a small roller, I end up accidentally getting into the parts where I don't want to get
Yeah,
at.
yeah. You always run that risk, but I think with me just focusing on this little area here with the finer carved details of her face, I think for me it's maybe it's more peace of mind than anything, but it's really just having. I'm not this roller is not inked up nearly as much as the other ones, so it's just more about what I had handy at the moment, honest speaking. So I'm going to go back over it one more time just to make sure. I'm always very, the term I hear used a lot is I want to charge it with ink, and I think it's very appropriate. You want to really get good coverage in large, kind of areas like this. Okay, I think that's probably going to be as good as it's going to be. And, now the moment of truth. I use a couple of different things for pressure when I'm printing from home. I've got this Baron that I bought in Tokyo that's really great that I use sometimes. I have this Speedball Baron, which is really good for, really applying pressure. I usually use this. My typical working scenario is I use the spoon. I got this like fancy cooking spoon I think I got this at Nora, Detroit, actually. And I thought it was like perfectly ergonomic for what I do with printmaking. And I use this all the time, as you can kind of see. I use this, I do a first pass with this, and then I do a second pass with the heavy duty brayer, or not brayer, but Baron. And I usually use this piece of waxy paper in between the paper I'm printing on and the Baron so that I don't, grind away or sand away the paper, because I use this Japanese mulberry paper. I really don't use this as much when I'm printing on a press. I do sometimes, but it works really well for hand printmaking like I'm demonstrating right now. So just give me a moment here. Might not get a very, it's kind of tricky getting the camera positioned here, but I'll try my best here. So if anybody else has questions, I'm happy to answer them while I'm getting this ready.
Yeah, feel free to use that Q&A button down at the bottom of your screen if you have questions. Oh, cool. Here we go. We got one from Declan. What do you do to push yourself through times where you're unmotivated to create? Great question.
And, I think that's where that's why the sketchbook is so important to me, because that's when I dive into my sketchbook. Because for me, I kind of wear many hats. I'm a college professor, but I'm also an administrator, and I enjoy teaching. I enjoy I love my job at CCS. I love teaching and stuff, but there are times where it's challenging. Where if you have a full day of doing administrative tasks, it's not always the most fun and enjoyable thing. and I don't have time to really dive into a carving or, other things. And so, but I do have time to sit and really explore in my sketchbook. And that's why my sketchbook is vitally important to me. Is may not have time to do this like really, complex masterpiece, but I have time to really dive in and explore an idea. And so that's what I do. Sometimes sometimes I'm not feeling it and it just sucks, and I have to kind of just process that. And I try to find other things, I go for a walk. I try to reach out to someone I care about. I watch a very stupid movie. Sometimes you just have to do that instead of trying to, beat yourself up. So the thing that I try not to do is not beat myself up. And the way I kind of remedy that is by getting to work in my sketchbook and not worrying about making pretty little drawings in it, but just ideating and thumbnailing and just trying to throw myself in it. But there are times where that doesn't work. And when that's not working, you really have to pay attention to that with yourself and take care of yourself. Self-care is something that for some reason we don't value enough, I think, as a society. And we got to find, whatever that means, you got to find ways to take care of yourself. That was a big long answer for that. So
No, I love it. I love it. I've got a question from Lauren here on Facebook who asked, what was it like working on the Salt Lake City Olympics with all the financial uncertainty that surrounded the games?
So, at first there was a lot. We weren't really part of that. A lot of that stuff had occurred really early on. And by the time we were involved in working on the medal design, and I don't know if many people remember this, but Mitt Romney was brought on to head up the the games. And he kind of came in and did a lot of work to fix things up that were kind of messed up before. There's a lot of just, kind of stuff that happened early on and by the time that we were involved, a lot of that stuff had been resolved, quite honestly. And so I didn't really see a lot of that. But it was a pleasure. I mean, it was a great project to work on and work with some really amazing people. And, it was one of those once in a lifetime sort of projects that I'm just really feel honored to be part of. And now I'm going to take and use my heavier, dutier Baron to really get in there and make sure that I get a good impression. I'll probably, I would suspect that this print here might not be as solid as the next one. I've planned to do 2 of these for you guys so that you can see, and hopefully, we have a moment of truth coming up here to see how well or not so well I inked up the block. I don't know, any more questions? I love the conversation part of these things. I'm so used to a classroom, whether it be in Zoom or whether it be in person, that I love the conversation part of these things.
Yeah, it's a little different when it's the webinar and the attendees.
I know, right? Like,
well, we got some conversation as well going on. Declan is again says thank you for the demonstration of this piece. We got a comment coming in from Lauren Perry. Who says, do you always wear a watch while working?
I do. I'm a big, okay, so during the pandemic, I've been a big believer of one of my other mentors. He worked as a freelancer in New York. Chris Spolen sadly passed away about a year or so ago. And he lived upstairs in a Staten Island apartment, or had a condo or something. He lived upstairs and he would walk downstairs to the office, and he always wore a shirt and tie. And I don't do that, but I've been very intentional in wearing a watch, in wearing my shoes, dressing like I normally would if I was to go down in person to CCS, or if I'm going to my building to work at my studio building with Joe. I'm very intentional about that. I love watches too. Like this watch here is I've had this watch since 1989. I got this when I was 15 years old. When I got this in Moscow. It's a Russian military watch. So I've had it with me forever. Don't get me started about watches, but I intentionally do that. I intentionally have done that throughout the pandemic or stay-at-home order, and it helps. And I've really taken to heart the advice from my mentor, from Chris Bowen. So, okay, moment of truth, everyone. We'll see if this came out okay. Okay, so this one shifted quite a bit, and I think so. It's not quite. I mean, it's kind of interesting what it did here. It kind of has this ghost-like effect. But I think I need to ink it up a little bit more, and I need to get a little bit more ink and a little bit more pressure on it. So I'm going to do one more here. About 80% happy with it, but it could, I'm going to try to make it a little bit better. So I'm going to try that right now.
We've got a couple of questions coming in here. Juliana asks, do you have any techniques to avoid wrist pain while drawing or carving?
Wrist pain. Yeah, I do. I don't know if everybody in here took a typing class. I'm old enough to have taken a typing class or caught the tail end of that. But I do a lot of different. There was a typing class I took in school, and they had us do like little hand stretching techniques, and I do those. I also really studied up on the Japanese technique of carving and using Japanese carvers, because I think that they've got centuries on the rest of us in terms of refining that, and their technique and using what they call hangito, which is a carving knife that you use before you use a U or V gouge. Learning that technique and mastering that would really help you as far as having wrist pain or those sorts of issues. So that's really helped me.
Great. And we also have another question from Scott. Have you ever been to the Bata Shoe Museum in Toronto? Bata, did I say that right?
No. I've only been to Toronto once, but I've been dying to go back there. Definitely message me the information. I want to check it out. I was there for the Adobe Educators Conference. I presented there a few years ago and stayed downtown. Actually, the hotel was in the baseball stadium. It was so surreal, and loved it. I mean, I fell in love with Toronto. I think it's an amazing city. But definitely send me the info. I'd love to check it out. I did check out a museum there, but I just can't recall the name of it at the moment. It's been a while, and a lot of water under that bridge.
Yeah. Yeah, the shoe work is really cool. Like I've seen a couple of my designer friends actually get into making shoe design. And I know that there was like a couple classes, I think like Shinola taught a class or something like that on building your own shoes that a couple friends took. It seems really fun and also really hard.
It is. It's very taxing. Like I made a pair in February, and I'll show those if I have a couple minutes here at the end. I'll try to hurry through this and get this one printed, and I'll show you guys those. But I've made 4 pairs now, but it really is tough on your hands to do, hand welting to make Oxfords or Derbies, especially. It's not as difficult with the cement method, of just simply gluing the sole. It's not that that's easy. It's difficult too, but yeah, but I cut myself when I was carving on the race car 3-color race car image that I showed you guys earlier. I wasn't following what I normally do to keep safe. I normally don't injure myself when I'm carving, and I kind of had a freak accident because I was really tired and I wasn't paying attention like I should, and the tool I was using wasn't sharpened, and I can already tell that this is much better, by the way, guys. But anyway, so I cut myself and ended up having to get 2 stitches. And this was right in the heart of the pandemic. It's like early April. I'm freaking out thinking like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go to the hospital. It was fine. You know, the hospital was great. They're a bunch of pros. You know, I was safe. It was fine. They knew what they were doing. It worked out great. And I was fine. But the reason why I bring up that story is with shoemaking, I held off making my next pair because when you're pulling the thread and you're doing a lot of stuff, I kind of cut myself on this joint right here. And, you know, I knew that I would re-injure it if I tried to start making shoes before that healed. And so I'm going to start up my next pair next week. I wanted to get this image out and printed, you know, get the 2-color thing printed, get it out there, hopefully sell some and donate the funds to the Ruth Ellis Center, all that kind of good stuff. But after I do that, I'm really going to focus on making my next pair. But yeah, you know, that's something that we do at CCS. The fashion accessories program there very specifically has, you can learn how to make men's, women's shoes, whatever shoes, you know, you can make. We got a great program for that. I highly recommend it. We do a lot of continuing education or those types of, you know, adult learning classes too, that, you know, once we can kind of safely get back there, we're going to be doing a blended mode in the fall where we're going to do as much as we can in person, but we're also going to try to be as safe as we can.
Yeah, it's a whole new world for figuring out how you're going to do teaching right now.
Oh yeah, we're in that process. We're actively working on that at CCS. We're putting a lot. This is not a typical summer for us. We're putting a lot of work into. There's so many different moving pieces to this, and we're just, you know, I feel very confident though that we've got some good things in the works and that we're going to be able to deliver on our promise. So I'm feeling good about it. You know, but I just tend to, I'm just an optimistic kind of guy though too. So, okay, hopefully this works. This one I can tell is kind of shifted a little bit. So yeah, and it shifted again, dang it. Okay, but it's getting there. Much better than the last one. I think it's just continually trying to, you know, refine that. And that's something I'll do as and some of that might be taken care of when I actually print this with a press. And I don't know why this one is in particular giving me a hard time, but yeah, that's that print. So I'm really happy with how that turned out.
It's really gorgeous.
Thank you.
And yeah, and you said you were doing this in part for the Ruth Ellis Center, correct?
Yeah, I want to donate. You know, I'm going to do a limited edition. This is just me doing a test proof, but I'm going to run a limited two color edition of this. And when I'm ready to, I'll in the next, you know, hopefully in the next couple of days, I get this up on Instagram. I'm going to post it there. So if you're interested, you know, check out my Instagram and we'll find out a way in which we can get one of these to you. So, and then again, the proceeds go towards the Ruth Ellis Center. So. Really excited for that. So yeah, so just quickly here, if you got a second, I'll show you a couple of other things. So I'll show you the shoes I've worked on. So a few different ones here. This pair here, I'll kind of move this out of the way for a minute. And it's kind of show and tell time. So I'll kind of show you some of the things I've got. This pair, I didn't make these shoes. These are J. Crew shoes, but after I took a boot making class where I made these boots here, I took and just tried to keep practicing my skills. I resold this pair of J. Crew shoes I had, and I thought, I just don't want to resole these. I want to try and see if I can actually use these as a carving surface. And so I carved into them. I keep moving stuff in the wrong way there. You know, so the two wolves here, and that led me to approaching Noriyuki and doing the project with him. And then I'll just share with you one of Noriyuki's shoes, because you guys saw the sole, but you didn't see the upper part of the shoe. When he designed this shoe, he thought of the violin. The theme was music. And now this is done with a sewing machine, but by hand, stitching, that stitching is just, it's immaculate. And so these shoes are, this is, they're masterpieces, like a stringed instrument. And then this is the carving on the sole right here, if I can get that in the camera. So that's the project with Noriyuki. The pair of shoes that I made in Tokyo, made a pair of Oxfords. One of the shoes, I only had enough time to make one of the shoes and then cut out the materials for the second shoe. So when I got back in the fall here, I constructed, I made my left shoe. This is the shoe I made in Tokyo. And then this is the shoe I made in Detroit. So, and I've worn them quite a bit, I even had, so it's kind of, I've kind of somewhat ruined some of the patterning and stuff here, learning the patterning down here and just some of the craft things that you can learn there. So that's my third pair. Made another pair when I got back here, finished these in December, I think. And I've been wearing these quite a bit too. You can see I wear these quite a bit and they're very comfortable. These are a modified derby that I've made. And the tannery, the leather I got for this is from Pergamena in upstate New York. And it's a really terrific tannery there. And I need to do a little bit of polishing on these. And the last one, my most recent pair, is a pair, this pair is I made for someone else, and these here are, this has, I printed on the leather, and I'm still trying to figure out how to get the ink from not rubbing off. This is just normal oil-based printer's ink, and my plan is to work with Speedball in their advice and how to go forward with that. But I made these back in February. And, these, I use this wood block here. This is for the vamp, or for this part here. And then this is for the toe cap right here. And you can see it's kind of rubbed off. But, these shoes here. So I'm kind of addicted to it. Like, a lot of people ask me where I'm going with it. I'm not necessarily planning on my own shoe line or something like that. I'm just going to continue to explore it, and where it crosses over with my other work, so be it. Where it doesn't, I'll just keep exploring. And that's what I, kind of hope to do. So, yeah.
I love it. Yeah. Great crossover. Like, the carving the sole is such a great idea. I've done a little bit of leather work back in the day, and like doing that stamping and carving and stuff on leather, it's not the same as printmaking, but I think it like scratches that same part of your brain as well.
Oh yeah, it totally does. It really, it's a great, I just, it's the idea of just, continually trying to push my work where it's going, try to keep pushing things and keep going in new directions, I don't know how much time do we have left. I don't want to keep everybody here if we're running out of time.
Oh, but we're at about just over an hour. So if you want to wrap up, I think we're good. Thank you so much for joining us today on your birthday, no less.
Yay! Well, I can share a little bit more too if you want. Like, I can share.
Go for it. This is your time if you want to take a little bit
more. So I shared the images from my Tokyo sketchbook here, and I love sharing my sketchbooks in general. This one I devoted primarily to my trip to Japan, drawing from life, drawing on the metro, drawing, while waiting for the train. I kind of held off doing this because I could tell, more so than when I've drawn in the New York subway or here, I noticed that people weren't, were a little bit more uncomfortable with that. So I kind of held off doing it for a bit. And then, as I came back, starting to work in a lot of these study paintings that I'll be producing as larger paintings. But I also just like the directness of working this way too, and trying to keep that feeling and momentum going, and not tighten up too much, if you know what I mean, with these. And, some of these I shared with you, some of them I didn't. This is an ongoing thing that I'm working on. This is, Noriyuki's studio, sign hanging out front. There's Noriyuki working. There's YukiCon working. Ueno Park. A left-handed sewing machine, which I was so thrilled that, to do shoes the proper way, getting a left-handed, left-oriented sewing machine is the way to go. And this design that they have here, this Seiko sewing machine, is based off of a Singer model from early 20th century. And I was able to get one of those when I moved back here, when I came back home, rather, to Michigan. So still a lot more to fill up in that. This is a sketchbook I just finished up most recently. If anybody's been to Bolero, I don't live too far from here. This is, I'm always, I've got my phone with me all the time, as we all do, and I'm photographing stuff left and right, and then doing color studies with me. So, a value study for my students. This is based off of a Norman Rockwell painting, teaching composition, teaching value studies, all that kind of good stuff. More color studies. This is a limited color palette, a bunch of different things like that. So let me see if there's anything else. I kind of have to skip through because I know we're short on time, but a bunch of different, I've posted a live paint of, a speed painting of this and of this piece here in particular when I did a takeover of CCS's Instagram. This is for a wood engraving that I did for Noriyuki. This is the shoe nails, or shoes nail, that you buy in Japan for shoemaking, and I just love the box design and did my own riff on that. So a bunch of different things. This is from the illustration isolation, some of the paintings, the different 20-minute model poses from that, interspersed with other ideas for upcoming images. More from that. Freddie Mercury, bartender, bunch of different things, just trying to keep, and again, this is where I explore and try to keep myself loose and, open to new possibilities. So I got a bunch more of this on my Instagram. You guys, if you're more interested in more of my work, definitely connect with me there. I'd love to talk with you more there. If anybody's got any last question or two, I could take maybe one or two more of those, and then I can wrap it up here, or you guys tell me. So
yeah, get your questions in quick. If do you have any things that you're like looking forward to here in the fall with teaching? Any new revelations that you've had?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think obviously it's challenging, but I'm one for a challenge, and I look forward to seeing students again, even if it is in a limited capacity. I'm excited for that. We're doing summer workshops, by the way, at CCS. We felt really bad about, having, to shift things, and we didn't want to shortchange the May 2020 grads. So we're starting up workshops and open studio time starting July 13. So if the students have signed up for that, we're doing some summer workshops, which I'm excited to do. It'll kind of be my testing ground to see how well things go. But I think, going into the fall, as a department, as a college, as a department, the illustration department in particular, I can speak to, where we have an exciting new instructor coming on board, Betsy Bauer. She it works in visual development, and most recently with DreamWorks, and she'll be joining our group and teaching with us in the fall. I'm excited to see her get here, and we also have some exciting new classes. I'm really challenging myself. My next kind of unknown territory that I'm diving into is really diving into learning Unreal Engine as well as ZBrush, and incorporating those into my workflow process. So on a personal level, those are the things I'm interested in. As far as CCS, we're definitely planning out everything to make it as safe as an environment as we can. We're starting classes earlier, and then we're ending in-person class time by the time Thanksgiving, and then finishing the semester remotely, just to be safe. we're limiting, we're definitely limiting the number of students in the classroom just because we want to make sure that we have healthy distance between everybody. There's all those sorts of things, but so there's a lot of things where, like I think everybody, there's a sense of anxiousness there that I share, I think, with everyone, but I'm also anxious to get back there and see everybody again. I'm excited for that. So, and excited to keep pushing and learning new things and bringing what I can to the classroom. So that's kind of where I'm at. But yeah.
Great. Well, thanks again for joining us and taking time out of your day for this. We love seeing your stuff come across Instagram and everything. Make sure to follow Don there and watch some of the cool work. And what was the website again for that life drawing tonight?
Oh yeah, so if you go to visualartspassage.com, or if you just do a simple Google search for Visual Arts Passage Illustration Isolation, if you go there, it'll give you, it'll walk you through where to click to register. It's free to register. It's at 7:00 tonight. 6:00 they're starting at 6 because they're in Kansas City, but starts at 7:00 for those in the Eastern time zone. And it's great. I think it's very therapeutic, and it's just, it's a great way to connect with community. So.
Well, cool. Well, yeah, thanks a ton. Have a great rest of your birthday.
Thank
Hope
you.
you got some cake and ice cream. If any of you enjoyed this talk today, we also have another illustrator tomorrow. Ryan Steiner will be talking. So illustrator end of the week. So yeah.
Yes. Illustration. All right. Hey, thanks so much, Don. Thank you, everyone. Choki and Donna. It's great to see you as well. So take care, everybody. Thanks so much. Hope to talk to everybody soon. Take care.